Hello, I'm Doug Holmes, Mayor of Summerland, and welcome to episode 8 of the Mayor's Podcast. On November 4th, Summerland residents will go to the polls in a referendum to decide if they want the district to borrow up to $50 million to build a new multi-purpose recreation center. Last month, in episode 7, we talked about the state of the current Summerland Aquatic and Fitness Center and how it's at end of life. We also talked about the programming that goes on there and how it's such a great benefit to the wellness of the community. In today's podcast, we'll dive into the details of what's being proposed for a new recreation center. And joining me to wade through the discussion is Lori Mullin, Director of Community Services for the District of Summerland. Pardon the puns, Lori, but welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's great to be here.
In 2018, Council received a facility condition assessment that concluded our aquatic center was aging out and we should consider building a new one. In 2021, after a lot of public consultation, we received a needs assessment report that put forward the proposal we're now taking to referendum. A 6-lane pool separated by a leisure pool, hot tub, universal change rooms, fitness room, and multi-purpose rooms. Lori, could you explain how these various components were arrived at?
Sure. Well, as you know, the Aquatic Center was built in 1976, and at that time, the Summerland's population was approximately half of what it is today. And what we're finding today, that we're not able to meet the demands and the needs of our community at the Aquatic Center. We have a variety of programs that we offer, public programs such as like swim lessons and public swimming, lane swimming, aquafit special events, and we're trying to balance those with user groups. We have a variety of user groups, including RECOPE, which is a rehabilitation program for people with mobility issues. We have the Orca Swim Club. We have the Master Swim Club. We have a variety of school bookings, Special Olympics, birthday parties, triathlons, kayak sessions, and scuba, and so on. So it's been a real challenge to accommodate all of the booking requests that we get. And we're also experiencing a lot of wait lists for our many programs. With only one body of water, we have the 25-meter pool, we are essentially only able to accommodate one activity at a time. And so through that needs assessment that we completed in 2021, we asked the community on what they would like to see in a new facility, should it be constructed. And a pool and aquatic programming was the number one priority that was identified in the community, and that's what we heard. Having a lane pool designed for competitive swimming with built to appropriate standards, that was highly desired, as the current is too shallow in the shallow end to do properly done flip turns, and so we're not able to host the competitions that we'd like at the facility. So building a proper pool, lane pool, was highly rated. Also having a leisure pool and to be able to provide more concurrent programming was highlighted through the engagement, and that would be warmer temperature, beneficial for rehab programs and family programs, as well as preschool swim programs. And it would have play features that you're seeing in many of the modern pools that we have being built across the province. One of the other things we heard is that our facility doesn't meet the current design standards for universal and accessible change rooms. That's been a big challenge that we've been trying to address within the walls that we have, and it's barely adequate of what we'd be able to provide. And our goal is to have a welcoming and inclusive facility, and that's been very challenging with the existing building. We also heard having a fitness room was a priority. The current fitness room is very popular and overpopulated during our prime times. And we heard that having space for recreation programs for fitness and children and youth programming is highly desired in our community. So through that needs assessment, we learned a lot. And there were a variety of other things that council was faced with when we were looking at those items that came out of the needs assessment, such as a tennis bubble or a gymnasium or a walking track or maybe a larger pool that's 8 lanes. And those were all eliminated through process because we really wanted to build something and have the size of the project that was deemed right-sized for Summerland. And that's what we came up with, the core components that we're looking at right now.
Yeah, so you mentioned right size for Summerland. So and one of the things that your staff did, which was amazing, did a survey of BC communities that of like-sized communities to see what they had in terms of recreation centers. And a couple things that really stuck out there about that survey was that Summerland's aquatic center is really old compared to a lot of other communities, right? And also we're one of the few that doesn't have a second leisure pool alongside our main pool. Almost every town in BC around the same size as Summerland has a rec center with a deep water cold pool with swimming lanes together with a shallow warm water pool, as do many communities a lot smaller than Summerland. So we're talking about places like Castlegar, Creston, Dawson City, Duncan, Fernie, Ladysmith, Merritt, Nelson, Powell River, Prince Rupert, Qualicum Beach, Canal, Revelstoke, Seychelles, Smithers, Terrace, and Williams Lake. Those were all in alphabetical order, by the way. So, all those communities have a secondary leisure pool. And there's a reason why these towns have rec centers that have two pools, a separate main pool and a separate leisure pool. And it's because, what we have here, if we're to be really honest with ourselves, it's just not working. It's not working for our community. In Summerland, we're trying to be all things to all people with our modified pool. And so there's a shallow end and a deep end. The water is kept at what I call the Goldilocks temperature, not too warm, not too cold. But the reality is that many Summerland parents try to enroll their kids into swimming lessons in Penticton because the water in Summerland is too cold and too deep for them. The Orca Swim Club can't run proper swim meets because the water is too warm and too deep and too shallow. And teenagers get excited about going to field trips to Kelowna to go to H2O. Recope can't accommodate all the ailing and elderly people in our community who need help. And on it goes. There's a saying, half measures avail us nothing. And it would be a half measure to rebuild our current pool or build a new smaller one with only one basin. It would still cost millions of dollars, and not as many as millions of dollars as a larger facility. But I think we have to think about what would provide the greatest value for money. A smaller facility means there would be limited use, and it begs the question, who would we exclude? And so, as you were saying, if we want to be an inclusive community, then shouldn't we strive to accommodate everybody's needs? This is why we're holding a referendum to ask if we should invest in a recreation center that will benefit not just certain segments of the population, but the whole community.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that analysis of looking at the other pools, that was something we heard through this process as we were rolling out information to the community and said, well, how do we compare to other communities? And I think that was a big eye opener and something we can highlight to the listeners if they want to go onto our website and have a look at that document, which compares us to 41 communities across the province and what pools they have for populations from 5,000 to 19,000. That was really interesting as we did that exercise, and encourage people to have a look at that and look at that document and what those pools look like and how ours is one of the oldest pools that are on that list. But from that, maybe I'll just jump in about the 2022 feasibility and site fit study. That was an important part of this process and how we came up with the location of where we're looking to build this space. And so we went out to the community again and did some engagement to find out what the community thought about a couple of sites. We looked at our existing site and we looked at the arena site, and over 80% of the community polled chose the arena site as the preferred location, mainly to ensure that recreation services would not be disrupted while construction was underway. We really heard that loud and clear, how important recreation services are to our community, and by building on the existing site and having to have potentially 2 years of construction where those services aren't offered was not something that the community wanted to see. So that was one of the big reasons that we looked at that site. But there are a few other benefits that came out through this process of the site fit study, and the opportunity to be able to utilize energy from the arena to heat the pool by site fitting right beside the arena could result in significant energy savings. So a definite bonus by building on that site. Looking at parking, the concept drawings and the analysis indicated that we would be able to accommodate adequate parking on that site without having to build structured parking, which parkade is extremely expensive, and we know that we can accommodate both of these buildings on this site with a variety of opportunities of district land around the arena. There's also opportunity for efficiencies with maintenance and janitorial staffing by being co-located at the arena. So we've also applied to the Green and Inclusive Community Buildings Program to obtain $25 million grant to construct a net zero building. So that's really exciting to look at that opportunity. We're still waiting to find out if we are going to be successful with that grant, but a really amazing opportunity and the potential to build a net zero building if we are successful. And a few of those things that, as I mentioned, by being on the arena site, we're able to connect the excess heat from the arena, so that comes into achieving that net zero, but also looking at rooftop solar panels, underground geo-exchange heat exchanger system would be included in that to meet that net zero should we be successful.
Yeah, and that's a federal grant we're waiting for. And hopefully we'll hear about it before voting day. But unfortunately, the government hasn't provided us any sort of timeline on when they expect to make a decision. If we don't receive a grant, I know it seems a bit unfair since many municipalities before us, including Penticton and Kelowna, did receive government funding for their recreation centers. But the reality is that governments today aren't providing that kind of infrastructure funding anymore. It feels a bit like we're being penalized because we did such a good job at maintaining and extending the life of our old aquatic center. But now when we apply for a government grant, we need to consider what's important to those senior levels of government and align our local needs with their priorities. So for example, these days issues like climate change and the environment are top of mind for both the federal and provincial governments. So that's why we've been successful with grant applications for things like organic waste processing, water conservation, erosion control, solar panels, bike paths, all those kind of things. So while senior government today isn't likely to fund a run-of-the-mill swimming pool, they may be interested in supporting a rec center that achieves net zero emissions using things like rooftop solar, geothermal, and heat and reclamation from the arena. Anyway, that's the thinking behind our grant application for the new rec center. And fingers crossed, I think we do stand a good chance of receiving it. But we're not sitting on our hands and waiting for the government announcement, because we know construction costs keep going up, and the longer we delay, the more it will cost us to build. So there's a Chinese proverb that many people have heard of, that the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time is now. And so I think that goes the same for building something like a rec center. And so that's why council decided to proceed with the referendum now.
Yeah, that's right. And what we're looking at as far as a project cost is $50 million. That does include an escalation rate of 14%, reflects third quarter 2024 construction. So we'd be looking to construct next year, this time, and a completion date of 2026. And also within that $50 million is a design contingency allowance of 10% and construction contingency of 5%. And council also added a project contingency of $1 million for any unforeseen expenses or delays. So we're feeling very comfortable with this budget to be able to achieve this project within that $50 million. To build a net zero building, we would have to increase the budget by about $8.5 million to accommodate the capital investments in order to meet the net zero. But with the grant of $25 million, the overall project cost would be reduced to approximately $32.5 million. So that would require less borrowing to the community if we are successful. But we would only be adding those components in if we are successful with the grant application, which we're, like you say, hoping to find out sooner than later. We're all waiting for this big news and hope that comes soon. And one of the things I should mention too, just what the ballot, the question on the ballot will be, and what people can expect. It's a yes/no question, and it is: do you support the Corporation of the District of Summerland borrowing up to $50 million with interest over a period not exceeding 30 years in order to finance the construction of a new recreation centre to be located at 8820 Jubilee Road East, which is the arena site, by the way of Loan Authorization Bylaw 2023-016.
Yeah, thanks, Lori. I should say, municipal borrowing is very similar to a conventional home mortgage. The loan would be on a fixed term for the first 10 years, after which it'd be refinanced for another 5 or 10 years, the same as you would for your mortgage. We're able to get interest rates below those offered by chartered banks because all local governments in BC belong to an institution called the Municipal Finance Authority, and they have a AAA credit rating. The debt servicing costs would be paid half through a parcel tax and half through a property tax. So a parcel tax is where every property in Summerland would pay the same amount regardless of its size or value. And the property tax portion would be based on the assessed value of each property. So it's a little bit complicated, but if we take an average home in Summerland, the assessed value of an average residential property is just under $900,000. That property would have to pay about $560 per year over 30 years to repay the loan for the rec center. But we wouldn't have to borrow the money all at once, so the tax increase wouldn't come all in the first year. It would be brought in gradually over 4 years. I think borrowing is the most equitable way to fund a major infrastructure project like a rec center, because it ensures the cost is not paid entirely by today's taxpayer, but by future users of the facility as well.
Yeah, and I think really what we want is to get all corners of the community out to have their say, to vote on this, and to understand that that's coming really quick. So our general voting day, Saturday, November 4th. We have advanced voting days for people that are unable to make the November 4th day, on Wednesday, October 25th, and Tuesday, October 31st from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. at the Summerland Arena Banquet Room. And yeah, we just want to make sure that everybody knows it's coming, that people are informed and they've got the information to make an informed vote, and they show up on those days.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll be you'll be hearing lots from us about getting out to vote, and it's really important. And thank you, Lori, for joining me today to talk about the referendum and the proposed new recreation center.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And I would just encourage everybody to visit our website, summerland.ca/recreation center. We've got all the information of all the things we've collected and studies we've done and information over the last 5 years on our website. And we have a frequently asked question document that's been very valuable for people to read and go through those questions and answers. And it has all the information about voter eligibility at that site. So we encourage everybody to visit the site and find out more information there.
Yeah, that's summerland.ca/recreation center. So it's a lot of information there. Really appreciate that. That was Lori Mullin, Director of Community Services for the District of Summerland. As Lori mentioned, it's really important people get out to vote. I say this because this isn't just a referendum on a new swimming pool. It's a referendum on the future direction of our community. For the past 5 decades, the Aquatic and Fitness Center has been more than just a building. It's been a place where the community comes together. Youth come together to learn to swim and make friends. Adults come together to stay fit. People struck with injury or illness come together to recover. Our seniors come together to maintain their physical and mental health. With our old facility at the end of its life, we need to know if we should invest in a new gathering place that will serve the community for many decades to come. That's the difficult decision we have to make on November 4th. I am Summerland Mayor Doug Holmes, and you've been listening to the Mayor's Podcast. Thanks for tuning in.